Lord Dracula, Domino Count, we offer thee this chalice of fleshly lust, that it may arise.
It's early 2025. Everyone is vampire crazy with the recent release of the Nosferatu remake. We're not going to be talking about that film, however, because we mainly do B movies here. So what we're going to be talking about is Saint Dracula 3D, also known as Dracula Dark Lord. And this is a 2012 movie written and directed by Paul Rupesh. Now, it was filmed in England, but it's actually financed by the United Arab Emirates, apparently. So make of that what you will. And yeah, it's a kind of Dracula movie, I guess. This is kind of like when you out in summer somewhere, you're out, you know, on a nice day out in summer, and you see some kind of goth teenagers, and there's this one guy who's determined he's still going to wear his black long coat, and he's clearly dying underneath, just sweating, and you can just imagine he absolutely stinks, but he thinks he looks super cool, and that is how I would describe this movie. Alright, so let's discuss what's the story. Well, it focuses on a convent, I guess, and we have this nun who wants to join the convent, a novice nun, and she may well be the reincarnation of Dracula's long-lost love, and he's out and about looking for this reincarnation of this woman. He has a kind of a few vampire henchwomen who are out helping him, murdering people and things. But the church is on the case, and we have this priest who is trying to stop him, I guess. But there's a whole lot of smooching going on. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So, let's discuss this film. Alright, what works in this movie? Now, quite a lot doesn't, let me just say there, but let me be fair and give the praise where it is due. So it's obviously a lower budget movie, although according to IMDb it's not that low. But nonetheless, there is a good use of real kind of location shooting here. I believe some of it was filmed in Wales against these kind of like castle backdrops and things like that to give it some like a sort of Gothic feel. Although much of the movie takes place in the modern era, there is plenty of flashbacks when we get the kind of the more medieval kind of style sequences and things like this. But there is a good use of location shooting, you know, and just the kind of like the buildings that are surrounding it to give it this kind of like somewhat kind of classic feel, this kind of medieval Gothic kind of mood, which I do think, you know, helps the movie in some degree. And I'll be fair and say I think some of the cinematography is fairly good here. I mean, the movie feels like a music video at times. And there's no getting around that sort of cheesy, dry ice kind of feel. But within that, I will say I think there are some moody shots that do have some fairly good cinematography, albeit, like I said, it kind of looks like a 80s rock video at times. But, you know, they still kind of look well put together in some aspects. I think there is an idea here for having a kind of a modern Dracula myth where there's actually some philosophical debate in regards to the meaning of what Dracula represents in this movie. And I thought having this kind of like theological debate with these characters and different ideas about the meaning of what Dracula might mean to, say, men versus women, things like this, I think, you know what, there's a couple of interesting ideas dotted around within the film. And if you are a fan of the kind of the cheesy airport novels that you'll get that are all about, you know, vampires and like middle-aged women's kind of sexual fantasies type thing, I think that this movie is trying to capture that kind of like cheesy kind of gothic romance film, because there's plenty of sequences here that are just like embraces with the Dark Lord and things like this, and it's just kind of like, oh god, I mean, it's like, my god, it's so cheesy. But you can imagine that there's some lady sat in her house and there's loads of cats all around and things like that, and she's got, you know, dark curtains, and she's loving it. She's loving it. That's maybe who this movie is aimed at, perhaps. But let's be real here, peeps. Let's talk about what doesn't work. I think there is a few good sequences. There's a few good ideas. But the narrative that it sticks together with is just pure boredom. This movie has such a kind of all over the place storyline, such as it is, because let me tell you, there isn't a lot of story. The movie has so many long sequences of someone just like milling around, or, you know, some embrace with the Dark Lord and all of this. Oh, it's just like, it goes on forever. The actual story points seem few and far between. And even when we do get some kind of forward momentum in the plot, it seems to kind of somewhat kind of repeat elements that you know, yes, we've seen it in a flashback, and now history is repeating. We get the same kind of scene. It's just kind of like, the idea as well, I think, is to have lots of kind of non-linear sequences, so we see things out of order and, you know, flashbacks and stuff, and we spend way too long in the kind of the flashbacks, and as such, the kind of the more modern storyline with this kind of like monk or priest or whatever he's supposed to be, you don't really feel like he gets a lot of screen time, and therefore he doesn't have a lot of presence within the kind of like the A kind of storyline. So the way this story is constructed is just very poor on a narrative level. Like I said, I think there could have been an interesting story here, because it does have a few flashes of, maybe not brilliance, but, you know, okay sort of suggestions of some interesting stuff. But it just kind of is put together in just such a dreary movie in regards to its sort of engagement levels, and just has no real kind of forward momentum in story. Let's talk about the acting. Now, this was filmed in England, and I'm presuming the majority of them are English actors, but it's been ADR'd to an inch of its life, and as such, although it's probably the same actors doing the ADRing, the movie feels like it's been like dubbed, and as such, the acting seems not good. Now, you could argue maybe the ADR here is maybe at fault, and that's why the acting sounds so, you know, artificial in a way. But whatever the case, be it the kind of performances of the actors while they were doing it, or the kind of like the overbearing ADR that's going to have been laid over the top, whatever the case, the acting seems wooden and just kind of quite poor. You know, not too far of a point on it. The horror elements here are very much played down, and it goes into some unbelievably cheesy sequences in regards to the actual kind of like air quote horror elements. We have scenes where Dracula is like baring his fangs, and they're like saber-toothed tiger, like massive, huge fangs, like so impractical. I mean, I'm exaggerating a bit, but they're like way too big to be, you know, how would you close your mouth? Come on, you know. And it's just like, he's got to put his neck back and he's got to show everyone, because we've got to imagine there's a camera here and he's got to bare his fangs to the camera, and it's just so goofy. So yeah, it's just a kind of like a very shoddily put together movie. Not interesting, crap acting, boring characters, not enough plot, and too much time, you know, with kind of like, you know, Gothic romance scenes and stuff. And yeah, it's kind of poor all around, to be honest with you. A bit of a poor showing, this one. Yeah, 3 out of 10. Go see Nosferatu, I would suggest. Have you seen this? What do you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.